You not only heard the proof, but you seemingly saw the proof, viewers, fans, and subscribers. You heard the name, you heard the pop, you heard the fans, and now we're going to break it down for you right here in this very video. Remember to like, hype, subscribe, click the bell, and turn on all notifications for around-the-clock WWE news and rumors for you, because this show, this channel, never stops. Monday night, TD Garden, Boston. Paul Heyman opened up Monday Night Raw, and in the middle of a perfectly normal promo about Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, he says a name, and the entire building went silent, and then they erupted. The fans erupted, and stay with me, viewers, stay with me for this one, because what I am about to break down for you is not just about a name drop on a Monday Night Wrestling show on Netflix. No, it's not about that. It's actually a little bit more than just what you're thinking right now. This is about something much, much bigger, viewers. This is escalating. This is dominating online right now. Something that, if the rumblings I am hearing are accurate, could completely change the landscape of professional wrestling just 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42 on ESPN. And I want to be upfront with you right now. There is a piece of this story that I have not seen reported elsewhere or anywhere else. Not on the dirt sheets, not on the Observer, not on Fightful. The rumor that Dean Ambrose has already quietly signed with WWE. Now stay with me because the full picture is coming. Let's start from the beginning. Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar open the show. Standard WrestleMania build. Heyman is putting over Lesnar ahead of the Obafemi match at WrestleMania 42. Heyman starts listing names: The Undertaker, Goldberg, Braun Strowman, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, John Cena, and then it happened, viewers. And then it went down. Dean Ambrose. The crowd in Boston gasped, audible gasps, and then a massive reaction. The name got one of the biggest pops of the entire segment, and he wasn't even there. Bigger than any of the names on that list, ladies and gentlemen. Now, here is the first thing I want you to understand. WWE does not use AEW names on television. Oh, no, they do not do that. This is not a small thing, guys, okay? This is a deliberate policy that has been in place for years. You do not go on Monday Night Raw and casually drop the name of a current AEW superstar unless someone at a very high level has made a decision to allow that, okay? I can assure you of that right now. He is arguably the greatest promo in the history of the business. Every single syllable that comes out of his mouth on WWE television is deliberate from Paul Heyman. It is calculated. It is purposeful. Paul Heyman is not a man who makes mistakes with words. So when Paul Heyman says Dean Ambrose on Monday Night Raw 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42, that, viewers, that is not an accident. And stay with me, because most people covering this story are stopping right there. They are saying Heyman mentioned Dean Ambrose and the crowd reacted, and that is the end of the story. Well, I'm here to tell you that is not the end of the story. The story comes what's next. This story is what comes next for you. Let me give you the context that you need to understand why this name drop is significant beyond just crowd reaction. Jon Moxley, the man known today as the leader of the Death Riders in AEW, the AEW Continental Champion, the man who left WWE in April of 2019 due to creative differences and has been the cornerstone of All Elite Wrestling ever since. Now, in October of 2022, Tony Khan announced on social media that Jon Moxley had signed a 5-year extension with AEW. A contract, because I know a lot of you are going to say, well, Sean, he signed with AEW. There's no way this could happen. There's no way this could go down. And that deal runs through 2027, which is next year. So on the surface, Jon Moxley is locked into AEW. He cannot go to WWE. The contract is binding. End of story. But here is where it gets interesting, viewers. Here is where it gets absolutely interesting about Dean Ambrose and the WWE and a return to the company. Here is the part that most people covering this have completely missed. Jon Moxley, the person, is contracted to AEW. Yes. Dean Ambrose is not. Dean Ambrose is a WWE intellectual property. It is a character name, a persona, a trademark that belongs to WWE. Jon Moxley, the human being, signed with AEW. Dean Ambrose, the character, belongs to Stamford, Connecticut. It belongs to WWE, and that's the part I want you to get and understand on this one. And those are two completely different things. Now, stay with me because this is where the rumor is going to get real, okay? We're talking about realistic here. Now, I want to be precise here because the legal side of this matters enormously. Enormous. Has massive implications. And remember, for more videos like this, like, comment, subscribe, click the bell, turn on all notifications, and hype up the video. In professional wrestling, intellectual property, well, it's everything. Character names, ring names, personas. These are trademarked assets that belong to the company that created them, not the performers who portrayed them. WWE owns Dean Ambrose. They own that name. They own that character. They have owned it since the moment it was created inside their system. Jon Moxley, well, he owns Jon Moxley. That is his real identity, his independent persona, the character he built outside of WWE and brought into AEW. So what the rumblings I am hearing are suggestion is this. And again, I want to make clear that this is a rumor. This is not confirmed, but the sourcing behind it is coming from people who have been reliable in the past. Make no mistake about that, viewers, fans, and subscribers. The rumblings suggest that there are discussions and possibly an agreement already in place around the scenario in which Jon Moxley stays in AEW as Jon Moxley, honoring his contract completely, while Dean Ambrose, as a separate character, returns to WWE. Again, while Dean Ambrose as a character returns to WWE. Two separate identities, two separate contracts, two separate promotions between WWE and AEW. Jon Moxley in AEW on Wednesday nights, Dean Ambrose in WWE on Monday or Friday nights. Because you got Friday Night SmackDown and you got Monday Night Raw on USA Network and Netflix, respectively. And before you dismiss this as fantasy booking, think about the precedent that already exists in professional wrestling for exactly this kind of arrangement. Think about how many performers over the years have worked multiple promotions simultaneously under different names and different characters. Kind of like Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever name alias you want to go by, Dolph Ziggler, right? Think about the way intellectual property law in professional wrestling has been navigated over decades by some of the most legally sophisticated organizations in the entertainment business, in the realm. This is not unprecedented. And the timing of Paul Heyman saying the name on Monday Night Raw 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42 is not, and I repeat, is not a coincidence. But here is the part I have not told you yet, and this is the part that changes everything. Let me tell you what I think is actually happening here, okay, viewers? Let's get into this. And this is where the full picture comes together for the viewers, the fans, and the subscribers. Paul Heyman is a former co-creator of ECW. He is a former SmackDown general manager on the creative team at one time. A former executive director of Raw. He is not just a performer, he is one of the most creatively influential people in the history of the business. He has a he has a relationship with the WWE management that goes beyond anything you see on television. When Paul Heyman drops a name on Raw, a name that WWE has avoided saying on television for years, 7 years now, and he drops it 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42, and the crowd reacts the way they reacted in Boston, that is, viewers, a calculated move. That, viewers, is a test. WWE wanted to know how the crowd would react to hearing Dean Ambrose in 2026. And Boston answered that question loudly and clearly. The reaction, well, it was absolutely enormous. It was immediate and it was genuine. Dean Ambrose's name in 2026 still moves a crowd the way it moved the crowd in 2016 and 2017, when he was one of the most over performers on the entire roster at that time. Now, here is the thing about the character of Dean Ambrose that matters in conversation. Dean Ambrose left WWE under circumstances that were complicated. He was unhappy with how he was being booked. He felt creatively stiffened. He had a dream match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 32 that he felt was not given the space it deserved. Those are all documented reasons he has spoken about publicly. But here is what has changed since 2019, and it has changed, some would say, for the better. Vince McMahon is gone. Triple H is running creative. The company that Jon Moxley left is not the company that exists today. Every single performer who has come back since Triple H took over. CM Punk, AJ Lee, Becky Lynch, every single one of them have spoken of how different the creative environment is. That door closed in 2019 may not be closed in 2026 again. That door that was closed in 2019 may not be closed in 2026. I had to reiterate that because that is a very important point during this very video. Now, if Dean Ambrose's character can walk through that door independently of Jon Moxley's AEW contract, then 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42 is exactly the moment you would start laying the groundwork for it. Now stay with me because what I am about to tell you next is the part that I have not seen reported anywhere else. And now I want you to get into the part, and again, I want you viewers, this is big. This is absolutely vital to the report. I want to get into the part of this story that nobody else is covering. And I want to be very careful about how I present this, because I am not going to overstate what I know, and I am not going to pretend that this is confirmed when it is not. But there is a rumor, and it is coming from a source I reason to be trusting. I trust him. And the rumor is this. Dean Ambrose has already quietly signed a deal with WWE, according to gossip online. Not Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, the character, the intellectual property. And if that rumor is indeed accurate, viewers, if WWE has already secured the rights to actively use the Dean Ambrose character in 2026, 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42, then Paul Heyman saying that name on Monday Night Raw was not a test. It was an announcement. Think about that for a second. Paul Heyman does not accidentally say a name on live television in the opening segment of Raw 3 weeks before WrestleMania. He does not casually drop the name of a current AEW star without clearance from the highest levels of WWE management. That is not how Paul Heyman operates. That has never been how Paul Heyman operates. So if the clearance was given, if someone in Stamford, Connecticut picked up the phone and said, yes, you can say that name, the question becomes, why? And the answer the rumor is pointing to is the groundwork has already been laid out, viewers, fans, subscribers, and most importantly, channel members. Now, here is what makes this specific rumor credible beyond just a fan theory. Think about the pattern of references over the last several months. Before the Royal Rumble in January, and again, guys, I have a very vast knowledge. I have a solid backing. I remember a lot of things in the WWE. The WWE's been in my life all my life. I remember things that certain people don't remember. Before the Royal Rumble in January, WWE's official YouTube channel dropped a video called The 25 Greatest Royal Rumble Saves. And at position 15, Dean Ambrose in the 2016 Royal Rumble, referenced, highlighted on WWE's own official channel. Then Seth Rollins at WWE World named Dean Ambrose as one of the 2 people he would want to induct him into the Hall of Fame on the record publicly. And then Paul Heyman on Monday Night Raw in the opening segment 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42. See, the WWE, they're all dropping you hints, but a lot of you may not be recognizing it or hearing it or seeing it or paying attention. But I pay attention to everything in the WWE, right, wrong, or indifferent. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I pay attention to everything. Even if this amounts to be nothing, I pay attention to it. That is 3 separate references the WWE has made to Dean Ambrose across 3 separate WWE platforms in the space of just 3 months, ladies and gentlemen. Each one slightly bigger than the last. Each one slightly closer to WrestleMania weekend. If that is a coincidence, it is the most expensive coincidence in the history of professional wrestling. And if it is not a coincidence, viewers, if there is a plan behind every single one of those references, then Paul Heyman said on Monday night was the loudest signal yet that Dean Ambrose is coming. And if that silent signing rumor is real, he may already be here. And I want you to sit with the full WrestleMania implications here for a moment. I want you to sit with this, because this is the part that gets overlooked when people talk about Dean Ambrose returning. The Shield. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose. The 3 most successful members of a single faction in the history of Monday Night Raw. All 3 of them became Grand Slam champions. All 3 of them headlined WrestleMania. And all 3 of them became the defining performers of their generation. Roman Reigns is at WrestleMania 42 challenging CM Punk for the World Championship. Seth Rollins is currently on the shelf recovering from shoulder surgery. His WrestleMania status is still uncertain. And if Dean Ambrose as a character were to appear in WWE in the next 3 weeks, the Shield reunion conversation becomes the loudest conversation in professional wrestling heading into Las Vegas. Not as a match necessarily, not even as a full storyline necessarily, but the presence of Dean Ambrose in a WWE building at WrestleMania 42 weekend, at the Hall of Fame, backstage, at the show, on the show, would be the most talked about moment of the entire weekend. And quite frankly, the WWE knows that. The question is not whether this would generate interest. The question is whether the legal contractual mechanism exists to make it happen. And based on what I'm hearing, that conversation is not hypothetical anymore. Last thing, viewers, I got to address. The last thing I got to give to you right here. And stay with me for this, because I think this is the actual takeaway. Yes, the actual takeaway. The wrestling world in 2026 is fundamentally different place than it was in 2019 when Jon Moxley walked out of WWE and never looked back. CM Punk came back. Nobody thought that was possible. AJ Lee came back. Nobody thought that was possible. Bret the Hitman Hart came back. Nobody, and I mean nobody, thought that was possible or even probable. Sable came back to the WWE. Nobody thought that would ever happen. Bruno Sammartino got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Nobody in their right mind ever thought that would have happened, but it did. The Ultimate Warrior came back to the WWE. Nobody thought that would have ever happened, and it did. And now, the walls between WWE and the rest of wrestling world have been coming down one by one under Triple H's creative leadership. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you have Paul Heyman, the smartest man in professional wrestling, standing in the middle of the TD Garden in Boston 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42, saying a name that WWE has avoided for 7 years. That is not a throwaway line, guys. That is a message. Whether it leads to Dean Ambrose appearing at WrestleMania 42 weekend, whether it leads to a Shield reunion moment, whether it leads to a formal agreement between two companies about how a character and a person can exist in different spaces simultaneously, we do not know yet. What we know is that Paul Heyman said Dean Ambrose on Monday Night Raw. The crowd in Boston told WWE exactly how much they still want the character. The rumblings suggest there is more behind the name drop than anyone is publicly acknowledging. A silent signing rumor that cannot be confirmed, but cannot be dismissed either. 3 weeks before WrestleMania 42, ladies and gentlemen, in Las Vegas, on the grandest stage of them all. Watch carefully, because I do not think Monday Night Raw was the last time we hear that name. That is the full picture on the Dean Ambrose situation as it stands right now. Jon Moxley is contracted to AEW through 2027. Dean Ambrose is WWE intellectual property. Two separate identities and a name drop on Raw that the wrestling world is still talking about 48 hours later. If anything breaks on this story, you will hear it here first. Full coverage continues here on the brash and the brazen Sean's View Entertainment with the hottest, the latest, the greatest, the newest, the most definitive. Also, viewers, fans, and subscribers. Matt Cardona reveals Nick Khan's role in his return to the WWE if you're interested in watching and seeing that. A 4-way title NXT match has been booked for Stand and Deliver, and Santana's return and number one contender match booked for the March 31 NXT and NYC. Also, Johnny Gargano makes NXT return to win the number one contenders gauntlet match. What did you think about that? Also, viewers, fans, and subscribers. Lana Black reveals why she chose TNA over other promotions after her release from the WWE, and Sable gained support for a WWE Hall of Fame induction. Your thoughts, your comments, and your opinions on that. This is what we do. This is where we're at. I keep you glued to your screens because that's what it's all about. Your thoughts, your comments, plenty more to come around the clock. I will never stop for each and every one of you. Subscribe.